Hello Instagram, my name is Augustin Marks de Chabris and I'll be doing a takeover of Laurentian U's account for the next hour. I'm going into my fourth year majoring in computer science and I'm also captain of the men's varsity cross-country ski team. Stay tuned. So in my senior year of high school, my options for university majors were pre-med, mechatronics engineering, or aerospace engineering. But despite the allure of pre-med, I knew that my dislike for biology would not get me very far. I'm also not a very hands-on person. I always enjoyed the more abstract classes in high school. Actually, my favorite class was called Theory of Knowledge. It's more of a philosophy class, epistemology class. And I also excelled in math. So my math teacher, he knew that I had some difficulty choosing what major I wanted to do. He gave me an information booklet on careers in computing. And I never really knew that a career in tech was actually a viable option in Canada. You hear stories about developers in the US, but not as much in Canada. Or that there was such a diversity of career paths within tech. This inspired me to do some programming in Python just out of curiosity. And sorry, you have to forgive me. I'm not too familiar with Instagram, so I think I cut off there. So I was saying that reading the book that inspired me to do some programming in Python, and I found I really enjoyed it. Some other factors for why I chose computer science were that it's an interesting field with lots of opportunities. It's lots of room for career advancement, not just in computing, but in other spheres of business. And let's face it, it's well remunerated. Overall, being a varsity athlete, it's been a great experience. So I actually was not going to compete at the varsity level, even though I did cross-country running, some skiing, and a bit of track and field quite competitively in high school. But I was told by one of my high school coaches that it would be really great for me if I could try out and get on the varsity Nordic ski team. So I tried out and I got on the team and I've loved it ever since. I would say that during the non-COVID years that I've been at Laurentian, that balancing training and competitions with school can get pretty difficult, especially during the competitive season. That's between December and early March. But the fact that Laurentian is one of only a few universities in Ontario that has walking/running/skiing trails actually within walking distance of campus has been great. I also think that being on a varsity team helped my athletics just with the social aspect and especially having a rigorous and consistent training regime. So for everybody out there that's considering competing at the varsity level, if you're ambivalent, I would say do it. It's not something you're going to regret. So I confess I was initially not really interested in developing games when I started taking computer science at Laurentian. I took the Game Design 1 class to fulfill a mandatory requirement for third year classes. But it's not like I'm not interested in video games. In the past, like in high school and in first year university, I played some Rainbow Six Siege and some The Division 2. But as I went through the Game Design 1 class, I found that I became really interested in the multifaceted approach to creating a game. So as with many things in life, exposure to a process of building something usually introduces you to the idea that there's a lot more than meets the eye. So something as simple as deciding how to create a main character in a game involves thinking about the aesthetics, how that blends with the rest of the game, the range of actions that this character can perform, interactions between this main character and NPCs, and a lot more. I actually liked it so much that I ended up taking Game Design 2, which is a fourth year computer science class. So this class focused less on the practical aspects of building a game and took a more big picture approach to game design. So it was a multidisciplinary approach to game theory, which explored philosophy, psychology, design, and a few other areas. So due to my love for the more abstract classes, it's actually been among one of my favorites that I've taken here at Laurentian. So in my honest opinion, I think the most important piece of creating any piece of software is starting with a clear concept, and this applies to games as well. I would say most certainly to games. Because if the objective of the game is not crystal clear from the get-go. It's very easy to get what's called scope creep. So for those unfamiliar with the term, it's when a project has kind of uncontrolled growth due to more and more features being added. So for example, if you want to build a survival game, it can spiral out of control if you start to worry about the minutia of the crafting system. Also, it can be very easy with games, especially if you're working as a group, to start work on some piece of the game only to find out that it doesn't really mesh with any other piece of the game. So to mitigate that, in our Game Design 1 project, my group was really great with consistent and clear communication. So once a basic premise is established, it's really good to just settle on a few great ideas and execute them well, rather than trying to execute, a list of a dozen ideas pretty poorly. So the game/software project out of all my years at Laurentian that I'm most proud of is definitely a Game Design 2 project that I helped design, called The Last Semester. So it's a survival horror action game where a student is forced to brave the horrors of a decrepit university to finish their degree and escape relatively unscathed. Now, the tricky part with designing this game was that it was purely conceptual, so you couldn't write a single line of code, and then you had to make sure that the concept of the game and all its features, mechanics, characters, etc. was detailed enough that you could pitch it to a group of mock game investors. So our goal as a group was really to come up with as solid a game concept as possible. Surprisingly enough, this actually proved far more difficult than our Game Design 1 project, because how do you present a polished enough game to a group of other people when the game isn't actually there? Because usually with our Game Design 1 game, it was very easy to put something together, artwork and etc., because the game was there. But in this case, we're kind of skipping a step. So this really forced us to have frequent and consistent group discussions to make sure that we were all on the same page, because it would have been very easy for one of us to, go astray with something like, let's say mechanics. So we had to deal with a lot of complex issues that were not part of the Game Design 1 project. So for example, when we were designing our crafting system, we had to really flesh out how many unique ingredients to include in our game mech, and what valid combinations of said ingredients would be valid. All right, so that's enough from me. If you guys have any questions, please ask them through the Ask Me sticker. See you later.